I knew that one day I'm going to start a law firm that will provide value to companies so they're not throwing good money after bad money. I started my law firm, Nieger, LLP, in 2008, and we were doing a lot of claims work. We represented primarily creditors and Lehman Brothers. We represented a lot of Swiss banks with $1 billion of claims. And then I also started doing preferences. And I started bumping up against this firm in Minnesota that I never heard of and losing cases to them because they were really good at preferences. And I'm like, who are these people?
ASK was founded actually in 1983 in Los Angeles by a former partner of mine. And I joined the firm with a joint venture. I had another law firm in Washington, D.C. in 1992. And eventually that firm I left to form ASK, which was called ASK Financial at that time, here in Minnesota, and that was in 1998. We decided to open a Midwest office. I was still based in Washington, D.C., and we had 3 offices, one in Washington, D.C., one in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and one in Los Angeles. Fast forward, we then grew our firm and found out that most of the bankruptcy work, and our firm was started as a bankruptcy boutique firm where we represented creditors on a contingency fee basis to acquire assets and bring them into the estate to pay other creditors. One of our strengths was to do an analysis of what are called avoidance actions or preferences. These are payments made in the last 90 days. We would claw them back. We had computerized programs do that, and we were one of the leading firms at doing that. In any event, Ed Nieger was also involved in bankruptcy cases, and I was introduced to him as at that time, a very young and aggressive lawyer. As you can see,
Not young anymore.
I've made him a lot older now.
And then we were introduced, and Joe had some large portfolio cases, and he was kind enough to give me some of his cases. Instead of hiring another lawyer or lawyers, I would handle it, and I would get a percentage of whatever ASK would recover. I would get a percentage, which I'm very grateful to Joe for.
I was introduced by a mutual friend as someone who could help us open a New York office.
I started off at Walgato, which at the time was a very powerhouse bankruptcy firm. That was what they were known for. But I always knew I wanted to start my own firm.
By then, the Los Angeles office had really downsized. There wasn't that much work in Los Angeles. Most of the bankruptcy work was moving to the East Coast, especially in the New York and Delaware areas. And I was told that Ed was an up-and-coming entrepreneurial lawyer, and our firm has always been entrepreneurial. So I met him, and we hit it off right away.
In that period, we realized that we really get along. We like each other. Joe is a true mensch. He's a gentleman. He's fair. He's reasonable. He's kind.
Thank you.
And after a while, we decided, why don't we just merge our firms? So we merged our firms in 2012. And we continued representing creditors. And again, these were creditors that used to pay law firms big money to recover not a lot of money.
We originally did it as a joint venture again between, at that time, ASK and Ed Nieger's firm, which was Nieger LLP. And that was probably around 2010 or so. And an opportunity to add a new partner, a new equity partner, and that was Ed. And we met, I remember we had a couple of meetings, and then we went to, at the time I had a home in Arizona as well, and we went there and spent the weekend hashing out, as two lawyers would do, partnership agreement.
And his pool.
That was better than the golf course, right, Ed?
Right.
Especially in the summertime when it's about 115 degrees in Phoenix. In any event, we were able to put together a partnership agreement, and in 2012, it was around August of 2012, that we formed ASK LLP. Firm again was ASK Financial LLP, and Ed's firm was Nieger LLP. So I told Ed, I tell you what we'll do. We'll keep the ASK, we'll drop the financial, and we'll put your LLP at the end of it. And so he still got the Nieger LLP, just without the Nieger. And we got rid of the financial, and then we had ASK LLP. And I think you agree that it ended up being a pretty good.
It was very good.
So we formed the firm in 2012, and we had a big coming out party, if I remember correctly. That was
Party Your Ass Off. That was the name of the party.
That was it.
And before you knew it, we were representing massive companies like Steinfeld Rentals, Coca-Cola Bottling Company, Mitsubishi, and all their bankruptcies. Whenever they were a creditor, instead of giving it to their big firm, they would give it to us and recover money for them, and we'd give them the attention that they deserve. And if we wouldn't recover a lot of money, we would cut our bill, which is something a big law firm would never do, because we didn't want them throwing good money after bad money. And we were very creative in our fee structure. It was a lot of fun to work on. So we would do a lot of work for them up front and not charge. But if and when things got complicated, then we would come up with a different arrangement. And they really appreciated that, because the last thing companies want to do when they're owed money by a bankrupt company is to throw good money after bad money.
One of the other things I think that we were at the forefront of doing is finding high-quality legal talent. They didn't want to put in the 16 hours a day working weekends, but they wanted to still have the same exciting kind of work that they were doing. And they also wanted to have quality of life where they could actually work from their homes. And this was before COVID and even before Zoom, but we offered them a more flexible work environment. So, and many times, even when Ed, we had a downtown New York office on Times Square, but Ed would still have several associates that would come into the office and a couple of days a week, and also work from their home, even well before there was work from home, which allowed us to really attract some excellent people and very dedicated people, and some of that are still with us today, thankfully.
Right, for years.
Yeah.
Happy lawyers do good work. It's really hard to do good work when you're miserable. So we get lawyers from the top law firms and top law schools who weren't happy in the environment that they were in, and then we hire them, and they're happy, and they have a home life, and they can spend time with their children and their family, and that actually results in a much better work product. And I realized that at those firms, clients were losing a lot of value because there were a lot of smaller matters that the firms were still charging exorbitant amounts of money. It was basically a disaster, because preferences is you sue, 1,000 people for 50,000, 100,000, 200,000. And I realized it just didn't make sense for big firms to do preferences. They weren't getting the attention they deserved. They weren't getting the service they deserve, because for a big firm, this is a very small matter and it falls to the bottom of the pile.
We're really more interested in value, in providing our clients with the opportunity to assert their rights, but not have to pay huge legal fees to do so. So we do that in two ways. One, it's a contingency fee basis, but we also do it a modified hourly basis. I know Ed is very strong in the bankruptcy area of coming up with what's called efficiency counsel. We offer our clients a more efficient way to handle their cases, and we do it at a rate that is that's reduced from what might be the going rate for a high-end bankruptcy firm. Still, it is a fair rate, but it's a way that the estate can pay us a fair rate, but you don't have to pay the highest rate possible. Fast forward a little bit, Ed has always come up with a really good idea that we got involved. Ed especially got involved in what are called mass torts. And mass torts are these very large cases where there's an injury that is done by usually a defective product or a drug, or even a sexual abuse claim that is done for hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of potential victims. And Ed, why don't you tell them about when you got involved with it?
We were representing a lot of creditors, and that became one of our specialties along with preferences. And then there was a spree of mass tort bankruptcies, which are companies that filed for bankruptcy as a result of an avalanche of lawsuits against them. And they would file for bankruptcy, and because we were a creditor's law firm, these mass tort lawyers knew nothing about bankruptcy. They needed a bankruptcy lawyer to help them, and they hired us. So we represented the chair of the creditors committee in the Weinstein Company bankruptcy. And through that, I got to meet a lot of mass tort lawyers, but more importantly, I got to meet a lot of mass tort clients. And what I realized was that these mass tort clients were not happy with their lawyers. because the lawyers represented thousands of clients, and all these clients' word to them was a number. If the client wanted to know what's going on with their case, they wouldn't get an answer. Emails were not being responded to. Phone calls were not being returned. These law firms couldn't and really didn't care. And it was actually painful because these people suffered the worst kind of injuries, and they were really distraught. They kept on switching lawyers because the law firm they hired wouldn't return their phone calls, so they would hire another law firm and they'd just have the same story. And there really wasn't a law firm whose model was client-focused. The model was litigation-focused. But that's not enough. So we created a law firm that represents mass torts clients in and out of bankruptcy that is not only litigation-focused, not only do we fight to the death on behalf of our clients. For example, in Boy Scouts, we helped get a $2.3 billion settlement, and Purdue Pharma, we got a $750 million settlement. So we fight really aggressively on behalf of our clients. But we also realize that our clients are individuals, they're not numbers, who have suffered really, really traumatic injuries. We make sure they don't even need to call. They know what's going on with their case. They know the status of the case before they call. And we have a whole bunch of unique ways to communicate with them. We're very technologically savvy. We use that to communicate with our clients in all different ways. Sometimes clients don't want to send an email. They want a WhatsApp or they want a text. We have ways to be in touch with them, let them know what's going on with their case, help them get the medical records that they need. A lot of times these law firms are like, all right, just get us your medical records. Well, how does a client get a medical record that's 10 years old? They don't know how to do it. We do it for them. So clients really appreciated that, this new client-focused mass tort model. We've become one of the leading mass tort law firms in the United States, representing close to 100,000 clients, suffered all different kinds of injuries. We have a sex abuse practice specializing in people who are sexually abused. The lawyers are compassionate and understand the trauma that a sexual abuse victim goes through. They know how hard it is to open up, and sometimes they open up to the lawyers for the first time, to our lawyers for the first time. And we have to know how to deal with that. We really care about our clients, and our clients realize that. And word gets out. And that's how we built our mass tort practice.
I do think one of the advantages, too, that we have over other law firms in the mass tort area is because of our bankruptcy experience and the people and contacts that we've made over these many years. We know almost every major high-end bankruptcy lawyer in the country, at least the ones in the big cases. So you get the advantage of not only having experienced mass tort lawyers, but you get ones that also can handle the cases when they do go into bankruptcy. And I will tell you, that's going to happen more. And the only way you can really effectively handle a large liability with thousands of potential claimants is through a bankruptcy system, which will allow for global settlement and global releases.
That's another thing a lot of clients don't know, that their claims may actually end up in bankruptcy, and then they're going to be handed off to a lawyer that they don't know and that they've never heard of. We represent the clients soup to nuts prior to bankruptcy, and if there's a bankruptcy, we represent them, and we represent them at the highest levels. In fact, by this Friday, I'll be filing a brief with the Supreme Court of the United States in the Purdue Pharma bankruptcy, where we're fighting the DOJ.
We have a case where, in the Purdue Pharma, where the parties have all come together, 50 states, thousands of municipalities, Indian tribes, and over 100,000 opioid victims have all come together on a plan, and everyone's agreed to it. And even the U.S. has reached a resolution with the estate. That's something that we're involved in. I have argued a case at the Supreme Court. Approximately 25 years ago, it was a bankruptcy transportation case. And it was one of the thrills of my life to be able to be first chair at the Supreme Court and argue the case, which, in my opinion, turned out very well for us. And it's still cited in many areas involving federal rules of procedure, some transportation issues, and bankruptcy issues.
And I would say that our entrepreneurial mindset doesn't just help our business, but it helps our clients, because we take clients who went to lawyer after lawyer who said, you don't have a case, you're not going to recover anything. We don't follow the cookie cutter mold that a lot of other law firms follow. but we look at each case anew, and we try to find ways to help someone who was hurt get justice, even when other law firms said they don't have a case, and we were very successful at doing that.
Not every case you can, and we can't sit here and guarantee a result, but we can say we will do everything we can to get the best results for our clients and advise them along the way as to how things are going. I'm very excited because our firm is growing. Right now we have 17 lawyers and we're growing. And these are all, as I said, very dedicated lawyers spread out throughout the United States. We have approximately 10 of them here in the Minneapolis-St. Paul office, but we also have ones in Florida and Virginia. We don't look at geographic location of the lawyer as that important. We look at the person, and because we actually hold ourselves out, too, to serve the entire country.
We're a national law firm, and in addition to the lawyers, we have a massive amount of support staff, and we need that support staff to support our clients, to help them get records, to return their phone calls, to answer their questions. And that's something we invest heavily in. There's nothing that can replace a person. Our clients want to speak to people, compassionate people,
right,
caring people, smart people, and that's what we have, and that's what we provide our clients.